Hey everybody, my name is Reed. Welcome to Reed's Practical AI. Today I'm going to do a teardown of this website that I've been working on with an AI coding assistant called Sankey Dance. I figured I'd just start off with a view of what Sankey Dance actually is. Essentially, it lets you get in and create various types of diagrams that you might find useful. So, for example, you can create a very flexible Sankey diagram, which is easy to control if you want to say change the name and everything, all that's very good. It's got themes over here. So if you want to, you can make it look like the Sweet Tart theme, or you can make it look like the Blockbuster theme, or you can keep it as Tower Records if that's what you're into. It has the ability to log in, which, hang on, I got to do it from here. There we go. I forgot to do this. Um, Sorry about that. There you go. Now, I used to call this actually Sankeytronic. That was the first name that I gave it. But after a while of talking with my friend too much while we were playing some video games, I came up with Sankey Dance, like Safety Dance. You're welcome. But you can see we've got a whole bunch of sample diagrams here. I'll go ahead and click edit on one of them and it comes up. And then I have this flyout controls, which is pretty cool. And of course, if I want to, let's see, I'll move this up here. I can actually download the thing and I have then a diagram that I can look at and bring it up on the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the journey of how I got here and hopefully it helps somebody in whatever website they're building. So I actually started off in Lovable. So if you cruise up here to the very first thing I did in Lovable, I said I want to create a website that generates beautiful Sankey diagrams from data supplied by the user. And so that's what it did. It created a very nice little website. We called it Sankeytronic. This is the version that is more mature than what's here at very version one, but you kind of get the idea. Now, the great thing about these AI coding assistants is that they have all the code history here. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I'm going to go here and I'll see if I can preview. Oh yeah, so now I can preview and you can see how the data input is here. It looks pretty good. You can see that I have this feature around being able to make the node width wiser. I like that. You can see that I've got a CSV if I want to, and I can change the way that this would flow, right? And so I can just change the values there. This actually inspired a lot of future features. Now, this is actually using the D3 Sankey diagram generator, I believe, which is pretty cool, but it's a little different than what I ended up wanting. Now, if we're here, this was the final version that you can see that's pretty large on the screen. It looks great. But what ended up happening was I ended up saying, okay, if I want one diagram type, I'm going to want another diagram type. And if we go over here into just my Lovable and I go to the dashboard, you'll see that I have a whole bunch of different types down here that I was working on. There was this Ventronic and Funneltronic and a bunch of others. So none of that really made sense to me. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go over to V0 and give that one a shot. And this is how I started. I said, I want to make a site for graphics that are hard to create in PowerPoint or Google Slides. I'm thinking Sankey diagrams, Venn diagrams, and pipeline diagrams, like sales pipelines. Everything should be customizable and downloadable as a ping. And this is literally version one that it gave me right here. Now, version one, Sankey diagram doesn't work. That's okay. We're going to go ahead and go out. Version two, the Venn diagram works actually pretty well. You can update that. It's got nice intersections. Can't move anything around, but it's got some pretty good customization to it, which I think is pretty cool. And so, all that is pretty good. And then if you go back here to this, we actually do have not a bad pipeline diagram. Of course, this is a horizontal diagram. This isn't exactly what I wanted, but that's okay. So now, if you cruise through here and you look, you'll see that I got version one, and I can sit here and I can go all the way up to version 99. So I went flew through the full stack on Lovable for the first iteration. And by the end, you can see I have a pretty nice setup here. I've got a Sankey diagram, Venn, pipeline network, chord, sunburst, radar, tree map, and heat map. And they're all pretty interesting, so you can get in and do some categories and insert, data. And a lot of times this stuff is working just fine. You can see where you can update it. And it did all that pretty magically. which feels great. But it also had some problems. So if you look, you'll notice that there's like some of these are inconsistent in the way the diagrams are laid out. The customization is inconsistent. The Venn diagrams, things are a little bit wonky, although you can move things, which is very cool. And actually, I'll show you the thing that I love most about Sankey diagram. And this is really what got me hooked on V0. Look at this. It's not using D3 as far as I can tell. It's using its own code, which is pretty amazing. So, so far, so good. At this point, I have it deployed to sankeytronic.com. I have a login over here where you can log into it. And then, of course, things started to get kind of interesting. So what I noticed at first, if I just take the Sankey code as the second, you'll notice it has a couple of different things that are weird. So first of all, there's Sankey, and then there's this ID, and then a page.tsx. And so this page is for if you are loading up a diagram, but then it also has a separate one for when you're editing a diagram, right? First of all, notice on this loading up a diagram, it has 473 lines in this class. Um, for any developers out there, that is a lot to have in a class. For a layperson out there, you might not be aware, but that's a lot. And the problem here comes because we actually have essentially 4 pages doing the same thing. So this one is displaying and has about 800 lines. This one's not too bad. It only has like 28. This one, about 23. And then this one, again, at 472. So that's a little challenging. All of that needs to be refactored out. That's okay. I can do that. What really got me about kind of this is that you'll notice the look and feel is different. I didn't actually tell it to do this new look and feel. It just kind of did it on its own, which is fine. But you'll notice there's no header, right? There's no common footer, which is a little challenging. You'd like to have a header and footer. So you'd like to have some consistency around the way it's laid out. And so what I found was that I had to create a separate project. And so I created a separate project that's just a generic layout. And it went through a couple of iterations on this. And so you'll see where on this iteration, I have a standard footer, I have a standard canvas that I'm working with, I have a standard set of diagram controls, standard header, standard subheader. And I started to apply that actually into the app with pretty good success. And so if you look, here is a version, this is V6. And so I started forking it and doing more versions and being a lot more liberal about that just to hopefully have a little bit fresher context a lot of the time. And so this actually not bad, looks pretty good, right? The problem, of course, is that this is actually pretty small. And if I go over here to Sankey, how does Sankey look? Sankey looks pretty much the same. You know, it has the download and the reset there, which is pretty good. It's got the nodes over here. It has the connections and it's got sample diagrams. And so this is where I wanted to have samples, which is good. But honestly, I don't need the diagram controls showing the whole time. And so then I started to say, well, what might that look like if I was to do it different? And that's really where this version came in. And so this is the same Tailwood generic layout, but instead of being on version 10, it's now on version 42. And it's got this standard header, standard subheader, standard canvas, which is much bigger. It's got controls, and the controls are very consistent. And it has a standard set of buttons here at the bottom that you can see, right? It's got save, download, and reset, all of which is great. So that looks pretty good. And let's see, I don't remember why I brought this one up. Oh yeah, this was actually showing this one in action, of course. And so here you can see that I now have a Sankey diagram set up with the flyout controls. It's got nodes, it's got connections and data. This data is that same thing as the CSV that I had on the very first Lovable one. And then of course, sample diagrams, website user journey, and everything else. So pretty cool stuff. Meanwhile, it all still moves very nicely. And so if you're interested in customizing this, you can do it pretty easily, which I think is good. And then, of course, you can also download it, and it downloads just fine. So um, that's where we are. Now, I ran into some more challenges because what I found was happening was these things were actually pretty inconsistent. And so if I go over here to the home page, first of all, you'll see that I now have red buttons. That goes with this new kind of look and feel that I was looking for. I told you I was thinking about Safety Dance one night. I did that after watching the Tower Records, what is it, documentary that's on Prime. It's a pretty good documentary if you're interested. But anyway, I don't really know why it gave me all the different colors, but it did. And you'll notice as I go into some of these charts, right? The thing is actually uh, the common layouts applied inconsistently, right? And so I had to do a lot of work to make sure that was applied more consistently. And then also here in code, what you'll see is you'll see that as I go into Sankey, I now have a more rational view of pages. I still don't know that I need this separate new one, but it's got a very reasonable number of lines, so I'll just assume yes. Um, this page right here actually has a bunch of the sample diagrams in it. I later factored those out so that you'd have to deal with them. This one is still pretty long. It's still about 700 lines at this point, which is more than I'd like. So anyway, let's get into version 11, right? And version 11 starts to introduce this theming capability. So I started to really have this idea that what I wanted was more consistent look and feel, more consistent themes, and I wanted that all to be controlled in a central place. And so you can see that I've done some, different kind of 80s and 90s themed um, uh, themes, for lack of a better word, and they work pretty well. It took a little while to get everything to work well because there wasn't a consistent use of common components. And so if you look in here, at this point, we'll go into some of this components that you can see down here, and you'll see that we have common canvas, common subheader, and then we have an awkwardly named but still significant site footer common and site header common, and those actually work pretty well. Now, these theme consumers and theme provider, this took me quite a while to do, but once I got that down, it seems like it works pretty nice and I can add more to them. So if I fast forward to today, I'm going to go here. This is Fork 17 version 6. I think this is the latest version. Yeah. This is the one I've been working on just a little bit tonight. I'm trying to change a little bit of code there, and for some reason it's not actually working. That's fine. I'll just go back to version 5 and I'll show you what this looks like. Oh, version 5 had an error. That's right. I'll go back here to version 4. This is what's live on the web right now. Um, And you can see I've got 3 themes, right? So I added a sweet tart theme. I gotta just get that white out, obviously, and put that into transparent. I'll get there, don't worry about it. And then I start to have a pretty good look and feel for how this works. And it's pretty consistent, although not perfectly consistent, right? Like this green button still yanks my chain a little bit. The controls here still have samples in them, which is great. And so if you're used to being able to see some of that stuff, you can see it and you can still move things around. And then I think this reset works. Yep, reset works just fine. And then, of course, as you go back to the front, different diagrams have things that are a little bit different, but this one looks pretty good, pretty consistent. Got this texture around it here, which I should probably get rid of, figure out how to do that. But overall, I'm pretty happy at the progress on this. So now that I've kind of walked you through what the journey was, I want to talk about a couple of big lessons learned. Number one is you need to enforce that layout consistency pretty early. Like if we go back over here to this custom website, and I go back down to say version, I don't know, let's try the first version I deployed. What's the first version I deployed? Oh yeah, I didn't deploy for a while. Okay. So we'll go back here to version 68. And I think what you're going to see is on the front page, we don't have like all of the diagrams yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we only have 8 of them. No, I guess there's 9 of them. Yeah, I guess there's 9. So we do have all of them there. But what I essentially did was I said, okay, everything seems to be working okay with the 3 diagrams. Let's go ahead and add a bunch more diagrams. And what I noticed was it was actually very difficult to get those to be consistent as I added them. And so the number one thing that I would recommend is to go back and as you're doing something like this, you need to very early on say, this is what I want my standard format to look like if you have a standard format. If you don't have a standard format, no big deal. Version 33 here, you can see it only has the 6 diagrams on it. And I was very optimistic about how those might be created. So anyway, that's the number one thing that I would do. The number 2 thing that I would do is I would very early go in and make sure that it's refactoring code into a reasonable way. So if I start to look at this code, and I'll start with the Sankey diagram. you can see that this now has some different pieces to it that are very small and they're very testable, right? And I don't know, I don't really have any tests in here except for me looking at it. But the smaller things are, the easier it is for me to understand. And so you can see it's done a pretty nice job, like getting these into smaller components, so that you can work with it. Now, I don't have anything that's 700 lines, which is great. And if I go down to components at this point, let's see, components. I have all of these diagrams have things componentized out. So I have my Sankey samples tab, I have Sankey nodes, I have my Sankey data over here. All of that's pretty good, and it's all reasonable size, so I have a fighting chance of understanding it. Now, some of this in here isn't quite as organized as I'd like it. So, say for example, the Sankey diagram, which is the class that actually goes through and generates the Sankey diagram. I'd still like that to be kind of refactored out, but it turned out to be as kind of a big pain in the butt to move. Didn't move automatically pretty easily, so I just kind of left it there. So the second thing, though, that I would say is the more that you can uh, refactor these things so that they are in smaller chunks, the happier you're going to be. So then the third thing that I would do, and this is actually something that we do quite a bit in regular software development, is you want to figure out what that steel thread is going through the entire app. And by steel thread, I just mean starting from like one piece and going all the way to the end before you start building out stuff around it. So in this case, if I had to do it over again, I would probably say that the steel thread is a user a user can go ahead and create a very basic Sankey diagram in an authenticated way, and then from there they can go ahead and save that, and that save that prompts them to sign up, and then they can log in and they can see their dashboard and they can do all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that's most important about this. And then if I had then said, okay, now we want to really make sure everything's componentized, and I had inspected the code at that point to see, how crazy it was from a size perspective and whether or not it's been refactored correctly, then I could have said, okay, now let's add the Venn diagram and let's do the same things. Now let's add the pipeline diagram and let's do all the same things. That would have been a better way to do it. So, okay, that's about it. I hope this helps somebody out there who's working with one of these AI coding assistants, whether it's V0 or Lovable or Cursor or GitHub Copilot or Insert Bolt or any of the other varieties of ones that are out there. These are just going to keep getting better, and I hope you're having a fun time creating the apps you always dreamed of. See you later.